We will call this April meeting of the Administrative Regulation Review Subcommittee to order. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Senator Rocky Adams. Senator Wilson. Senator Yates. Representative Bridges. Representative Gordon. Representative Marzian. Co-Chair West.
Here.
And Chair Lewis.
Here. With a quorum being present, the subcommittee is duly constituted to do business. The first matter of business is approval of the minutes of the last meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, is there a motion for approval?
Motion.
A second. Without objections, so ordered. We'll get right into business. Should be a pretty light meeting today. For those that are attending virtually that are speaking in opposition on the optometry regulation, I am going to cap that at 10 minutes, so please discuss between yourselves however you want to divide that time up. We do have several wanting to speak on that, but that's just giving you notice, 10 minutes on that. Please call the first regulation.
Department of Veterans Affairs, 17 KAR 1030 with staff suggested amendment.
This regulation is being amended to allow nurse practitioners to apply for the Veterans Affairs Nurse Loan Repayment Program anytime throughout the year. The staff amendment amends various sections to comply with the drafting requirements of KRS Chapter 13A and make technical changes.
Please come up to the table, press the button there on the microphone, introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Bowman. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Kentucky Veteran Centers.
Thank you very much. There is a staff amendment. Is there a motion for approval? Is there a second? Without objections, so ordered. Does any member have any questions or comments on this regulation? Not seeing any. Thank you for coming. Please call the next regulation.
Board of Pharmacy, 201 KAR 2416 emergency.
201-2416 emergency establishes the process for pharmacies to report data to the Department of Insurance in accordance with KRS 315.038.
Thank you for coming. Eden, please identify yourself for the record. Is that mic on?
Now it is. Eden Davis, General Counsel.
Thank you. There are no amendments on this regulation. Does any member have any question or comment? I do. Eden, just one thing, and I talked to the executive director as well. You all are currently in discussions where there were public comments for the ordinary regulation.
That is correct. I actually filed that statement of consideration today, and there are several changes addressing comments that we received.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much. Please call the next regulation.
Board of Optometric Examiners, 201 KAR 5010 with staff suggested amendment.
201 KR 5010 amends the qualifications for optometric licensure to allow the Optometry Examining Board of Canada, OBEC, written examination results to be submitted in lieu of Part 1 of the National Board of Examiners in Optometry, NBEO, examination results and updates material incorporated by reference consistent with the proposed regulatory changes. The staff suggested amendment amends Section 3 to correct regulatory citations, updates the board's contact information, provides the website to access incorporated material, and makes technical corrections to comply with the drafting requirements of KRS Chapter 13A.
Is there anybody from the Board of Optometric Examiners here? Thank you. If you'll please come forward and identify yourselves for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Christy LeMay. I'm the Executive Director for the Board of Optometric Examiners.
And I'm Dr. Joe Ellis. I'm Dr. Joe Ellis. I'm a practicing optometrist in Benton, Kentucky. I've been in practice there since 1986 in Marshall County, Kentucky. I'm actually have the honor to serve on the Kentucky Board of Optometric Examiners, and I currently serve as their president at this time. and we appreciate your time to talk about quality access to eye care in Kentucky. Again, I will be the only optometrist speaking for this amendment today, but I assure you the Kentucky Optometric Association, the Kentucky College of Optometry, the doctors and the students here in the Commonwealth support this proposed amendment. Again,
Dr. Ellis, real quick, if you don't care, where we are trying to work on time, do you care if we go ahead and adopt the staff amendment and then probably a brief explanation of what the regulation does? We'll let the opposition speak at that time, and then if you want to offer a rebuttal, if that'll work.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Absolutely. With that said, there is a staff amendment. Is there a motion for approval? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Okay, Dr. Ellis, if you don't care, just give us a rundown of what this regulation does and what the need is for it and why you're in support of it.
Yes, sir. One of the issues that we've come across here, we actually are lucky in this state. We have centers of excellence here for eye care. We have a lot of people who look at nationally that look at coming to Louisville, Lexington referral centers to continue their optometric training. Also, we have internationals, and also there's 2 optometry schools in Canada. We actually have a number of Canadian students who come down to Louisville, Lexington to complete their externship and also their residency programs, and would like to have another avenue, another path to maybe get licensure in the Commonwealth, as they see we're always seeking quality eye care providers in the Commonwealth.
Thank you very much. With that being said, we will turn it over to those speaking in opposition via Zoom. Up first, I guess we will go with So who all do we have here in person that is wanting to testify against? I guess if you all want to come forward first, and then Dr. Ellis, if you all want to leave the table for a second. And those testifying on Zoom, I'll give you ample opportunity just as soon as up. Let's just so it's spread evenly. Let's limit this to 5 minutes, and then we'll give those on Zoom also 5 minutes as well. With that being said, if you want to make sure your green lights are on your microphones in front of you, pull them close, and then introduce yourselves for the record. And the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to.
Is your mic on? There you go.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on this important issue.
And then real quick, if you all want to introduce yourselves first.
I'm Dr. Jill Bryant. I'm the Executive Director of the National Board of Examiners in Optometry.
I'm Dr. Jamie Altoff. I'm the Assistant Director for Part 2 of NBO's 3-part exam series.
I'm Dr. Brett Foley. I'm Director of Psychometrics and Research at the National Board of Examiners in Optometry.
Thank you. Please continue.
I've been at the National Board since 2015. Prior to that, I spent 10 years in clinical practice at Duke University, so I understand the clinical applications of our exams. The National Board respectfully opposes the proposed regulatory amendment, which would change optometric licensure requirements in Kentucky to accept the Canadian exam. Our 3-part licensure exam series works together as one exam, each measuring different competencies in an overall determination of a candidate's knowledge, skills, and abilities. In 2024 alone, we worked with over 200 subject matter experts from across the country, including Kentucky, who develop our exam content. Each question on our exams is reviewed by about 25 optometrists before it is ever used on an exam. You see, we take this very seriously. Every decision we make is centered in testing best practices and ensuring the exams are designed to properly distinguish a qualified from an unqualified candidate. This ties directly to our mission of public protection. Our charge is to make sure that we are measuring the right content, testing the right skills, and determining competency appropriately for candidates presenting for licensure. Substituting a foreign exam into a series constructed for a different healthcare system compromises the validity of the entire exam process. We respect the authority of the Kentucky Board, but we are here today to make the case that U.S. and Canadian exams do not represent interchangeable parts. Allowing the substitution of an exam built for a different scope of practice puts the validity of licensure decisions at risk. Professional testing standards require that optometric licensure exams be validated for the purpose of evaluating competency based on the U.S. scope of practice. The Canadian exam has not. On behalf of the National Board, I urge you to find this amendment deficient. Thank you.
Thank you.
And good afternoon. My name is Dr. Brett Foley. I'm speaking today in opposition to the proposed amendment. I hold a PhD in psychometric methods and serve as the Director of Psychometrics and Research at NBEO. I've worked with NBEO on its exam programs for more than 10 years and have seen firsthand the diligence and care with which NBEO approaches its responsibilities for developing the nation's premier optometric licensure exam series that fairly, accurately, and reliably assesses optometric competence. NBEO has followed rigorous professional standards to develop a series of exams that cover the breadth and depth of knowledge, skills, and abilities necessary for the safe and effective independent practice of optometry. I was concerned to learn about the proposed amendment. These two exams are not equivalent. By making the NBEO Part 1 exam optional, licensure candidates no longer need to provide independent evidence of their knowledge of the biomedical science principles underlying optometric practice. I also have the honor to serve as a public member for the Nebraska Board of Engineers and Architects. As a regulator, I understand the role of that licensure boards serve in protecting the health, safety, and welfare of the public. The standards for educational and psychological testing state that adjusting passing scores to regulate the number of candidates entering the profession, quote, raises serious problems for the technical quality of the test scores and threatens the validity of interpretation of a passing score as indicating entry-level competence. In the same way, replacing a well-established, validated licensure exam with a different exam simply because it will result in an increased pass rate may put the health, safety, and welfare of the public at risk. To conclude, I believe that replacing the NBEO exam with a non-equivalent exam that does not assess biomedical science principles simply to improve pass rates is not in the best interest of the citizens of Kentucky. Thank you.
Thank you. And in the interest of time, I will keep my comments brief to one main point I would like to make. My background is in optometric education, so I wanted to address the idea that ACOE's Professional Optometric Degree Program, Standard 1.4, might establish the equivalency of these exams. ACOE has since stated that they have no position regarding the equivalency of these exams for the purpose of evaluating competency for licensure. However, today we're making it very clear, our testing experts, that these exams are in no way equivalent for that purpose. Using the Canadian board exam as an alternative requirement for licensure in the United States cannot be justified, and I respectfully ask that the committee finds this amendment deficient. Thank you.
Thank you all for your testimony, and I appreciate you all being brief and condensed. Thank you. Do any members of the subcommittee have any questions for the group at the table currently? My co-chair, Wes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have just a quick question. Could you briefly describe your interactions with the board leading up to today? And so was there back and forth with the board on your concerns? If you could just describe that process.
We would love to work with the Kentucky Board. In fact, we present to the Association of Regulatory Boards in Optometry throughout the year, which the Kentucky Board is a member of. So we've presented to them, met with them, and we would be happy to have them in Charlotte in our testing center. In fact, we have an open invitation for all state boards to visit us in Charlotte at our testing center.
I guess specifically, though, in relation to this reg, was there much interaction in particular between your organization and our board?
We have not met with them directly about this issue, but we would be more than happy to do so.
But was there any emails, I guess, back and forth?
No.
Or phone calls? Okay. So when did you first learn of the new reg?
We learned in the fall.
Okay. And so I guess playing devil's advocate, why wouldn't you take it upon yourself to reach out to the board and say, hey, we don't agree with this, we need to slow things down? Why wouldn't that be why didn't that happen, I guess?
As I stated, we are more than happy to work with the Kentucky Board. We'd be happy to address any questions or concerns. They have not called us or reached out with any concerns about our exams.
Okay, thank you.
Do any other members have any questions for the group before us? Okay, with that being said, we're going to turn testimony over to those on Zoom. Looks like we have the Vice President of Pearson View, Eric, I'm going to butcher it, man, Stolofo. If we want to start with you on that and go from there. And again, if everybody can try not to repeat what other testimony has had, just so we can keep things brief. But the floor is yours. Please introduce yourself and please continue.
Yep, you got my name perfect. But before I go, I just want to defer to the group if Michael Olson was going to go first. I thought in our order, or if I can. Fine. Okay. So, Michael, I think the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Michael Olson, the current president of the National Board of Examiners in Optometry. Thank you for this time to describe the National Board. Thanks to the Kentucky Board of Optometric Examiners, the National Board is accountable to the public and state regulatory agencies. We appreciate your dedication and work. In the United States, we test biomedical sciences along with medicine and other healthcare professions. Optometrists diagnose serious systemic diseases. Optometrists communicate, collaborate with other healthcare professions. We must be able to critically read medical literature and understand new developments in science. Stringent test requirements maintain the public trust in healthcare professions. This is not a repeat of undergraduate material. These biomedical sciences not tested in science are essential for understanding therapeutic interventions in a disease. And that's really my statement. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any others on Zoom that would like to testify as well?
Yes, I would if, oh.
I thought Lisa was next. Nope.
Hi, yes, I'm happy to go. My name is Lisa Fennell. I'm the Executive Director of the Association of Regulatory Boards of Optometry. We are also known as ARBO. Our members are optometric regulatory boards in the US, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, and the Kentucky Board of Optometry is a member of ARBO. As noted by some others today, the OEBC written exam does not test biomedical science. It was designed based on the scope of practice for optometrists in Canada, which is very different from the expanded scope of practice for optometrists in Kentucky. The NBEO was formed from an ARBO committee many years ago to focus entirely on the testing required by state optometry boards. ARBO provides oversight of the NBEO exams through our National Board Exam Review Committee, which reviews the content and methodology of the NBEO exams every year to ensure that they are current and appropriate for use by our members. If the Kentucky Board of Optometry were to accept the OEBC exam, they would have no participation in or oversight of the Canadian exam program. No other state in the U.S. accepts the OEBC exam for licensure. The proposed amendment will create barriers for optometrists in Kentucky who want to practice in multiple states and could reduce the quality of care for patients in Kentucky that they receive. So on behalf of ARBO, I urge you to vote no on this proposed regulatory amendment. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, thank you, sir. I'm Dr. Rich Castillo. I currently serve as the founding dean of the College of Optometric Medicine at the University of North Carolina in Pembroke. I'm here today representing myself as a regional stakeholder, an optometric physician, and an ophthalmologist licensed to practice medicine and surgery in Oklahoma and Kentucky. Since 1951, the NBO has represented a well-established national standard that keeps optometric licensing consistent and portable across states. And let's be mindful of the one fact: no state has ever accepted a foreign licensing exam as a valid substitute for initial licensure, not in medicine, dentistry, not in podiatry, not in optometry. These examinations are developed in accordance with jurisdiction-specific laws and public protection standards, and they are not interchangeable. Now, Kentucky's optometric physicians have an advanced scope of practice that is not practiced or even legal in Canada up to this point. And this includes laser and eyelid surgeries, injection of anesthetics, steroids, and prescriptive authority for controlled oral pharmaceuticals like opioids and benzodiazepines. And in this regard, the Canadian assessments are simply too restricted in scope by US standards. The MBO Part 1 examination, on the other hand, like the US medical boards, focuses on the applied basic sciences, which are the fundamental building blocks for clinical reasoning and decision-making that directly impact outcomes and patient safety. The Canadian exam has no NBO Part 1 basic science counterpart, and unlike the NBEO exams, does not undergo routine standard-setting validations against contemporary US standards, US practice standards. Substituting a limited foreign exam in place of the MBO national standard is unprecedented. It's risking challenges and concerns of credibility from other licensing boards, provider panels, credentialing services, and insurance companies who might regard this change as unsafe or substandard and refuse to recognize credentials and or delay or deny claims. So in conclusion, I respectfully urge the committee and the Kentucky Optometry Board to uphold Kentucky's established standards by reconsidering this unprecedented and unnecessary substitution. Thank you. I appreciate your time and consideration very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes. My name is Dr. Aaron Oberster. I am a graduate from optometry school at the University of Pikeville, Kentucky College of Optometry in 2023, and I now practice in a rural hospital setting. In the interest of the people and patients of Kentucky, I respectfully oppose this proposed regulatory amendment. As a recent graduate of optometry school here in Kentucky, I've seen firsthand how MBO examinations work in sequence to ensure optometrists have the necessary knowledge and skills for safe practice. MBO Part 1 assesses critical biomedical knowledge, the scientific foundation of optometric care. Removing it risks allowing unprepared clinicians into direct patient care. The current testing standards provided by the MBO ensure that only competent candidates can provide public care. By accepting the Optometry Examining Board of Canada's exam for licensure, a test based upon the Canadian healthcare system, you risk having unqualified candidates to receive licensure. This proposed change is not in the best interest of the people of Kentucky. As a practicing optometrist, I am using the knowledge from Part 1 daily to provide care for my patients. Working in a rural hospital, it is important to be able to diagnose and treat ocular diseases, but also be able to sit down and explain to the patient exactly what is causing their symptoms and how it can be related to other systemic health conditions. This can give the patient confidence in us to co-manage their systemic issues with other physicians, allowing for better communication and coordinated treatment. Licensure should be based on competency and not convenience. Part 1 is a tough exam and it covers a lot of information, and I'm sure a majority of my colleagues would agree with that. But it's an important step in the process to providing trustworthy care to the patients of Kentucky, as well as the rest of the country. The standard that we are held at should be consistent across the states, and accepting the Canadian Board's exam for licensure will lead to many complications. I urge you to vote no on this proposed regulatory amendment, and I thank you for letting me speak today.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else on Zoom? I believe that's...
Yes. Thank you.
Please.
Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Eric DeStalfo. I am Vice President of Business Development with Pearson VUE for the past 16 years. And beyond my corporate role within the testing industry, I serve as the officer and treasurer on the board of directors for the Association of Test Publishers, the largest testing trade association in the world. Pearson VUE is the largest provider of high-stakes proctored exams in the world, particularly in the healthcare sector. As a partner of NBEO, we respectfully oppose the proposed regulatory amendment to 201 KAR 50010. As you've heard from NBEO and ARBO leadership, NBEO and OEBC exams, Canadian exams, are not equivalent in knowledge, but also, and importantly, they're incomparable in test security. The NBEO exams that we deliver are delivered in a test center, and I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. You tell me if the room can see it. This is the environment in which the NBEO exams are delivered. These are our company-owned and operated test centers called Pearson Professional Centers. You can see that every workstation is identical, that the candidate has no control of the environment. It is our environment, and we check them in. And this is our gold standard for test delivery. The Canadian exams are delivered on remote proctored. Since COVID, remote proctoring briefly was popular, but now many of the high stakes testing organizations across the country are realizing the security threats. This is an actual investigation using a whistleblower photo of a candidate on the right helping a candidate on the left unlawfully pass the exam, being photographed by a whistleblower. You can see the environment is uncontrolled and the device is being used by the candidate. NBEO's use of our secure test centers upholds the test integrity and ensures that only qualified candidates receive licensure. Lastly, I will submit to this committee that close to a dozen high-stakes programs have discontinued remote proctoring because of the challenges to test security. I give you 3 of these examples here, all of whom have made public statements about why they've discontinued remote proctoring because of the security concerns. So in conclusion, on behalf of Pearson VUE, I urge you to vote no on this proposed regulatory amendment, and I thank you again for your time.
Thank you all for your testimony. Do any members of the subcommittee have any questions or comments for those that are in opposition? I have a question. And again, I appreciate those of you that have traveled here today, and I appreciate those that have attended virtually on Zoom. And I also appreciate the gentleman who attended school in Pikeville. Does anyone that is speaking in opposition currently live in Kentucky? Thank you. With that being said, Dr. Ellis, if you want to come back up to the table, and those that are here, I do appreciate the testimony. Dr. Ellis, if you and Christy want to come forward and offer a rebuttal and anything else. Thank you.
Yes, just a few more comments here. And for clarity's sake, not to get all these acronyms mixed up, I'm going to refer to NBEO as the national board and the Canadian boards. They're actually called OEBC, but I call them the Canadian boards to make it simpler. To be honest with you, the Kentucky Board of Optometric Examiners, we're just simply here trying to make our regulatory match up with the statute. I'm going to read the statute here. Accept the scores from an examination prepared and administered by the National Board of Optometric Examiners or any other organization approved by this board. So again, what was our rationale here? A couple of things. We were concerned and we wanted to ensure that we continue to have accurate assessments of clinical knowledge. Number 2, we were looking at access issues down the road. There's no doubt in American healthcare we're going to have shortage of a lot of healthcare providers, in particular in eye care. And frankly, we're having shortages even now, optometrists, ophthalmologists here in the Commonwealth. And also during our research, we did not find any statistical data that showed any adverse outcome of using the Canadian boards. Also, I beg to differ from some of my colleagues that presented here today. One more acronym, ACOE, the American Council on Optometric Education, which is sanctioned by the Department of Education of the U.S., recognizes the Canadian boards as an equivalent. And I'll tell you one thing in particular. Part of the way the schools and colleges of optometry, and by the way, there's 2 schools and colleges of optometry in Canada, to maintain their accreditation in 6 years, they must have 80% of their graduates passed either the national boards or the Canadian boards, and this is from the American Council on Optometric Education. Also, the American Council of ACOE actually describes the national boards as 3 parts. One is the basic science, the other one is clinical applications and practical applications. They even further to go on to say that the Canadian board combines their part 1 combines the basic science component and the clinical component. Again, This is just for part one of the boards. Our applicants still are going to have to pass the national boards on part two and part three. Again, frankly, I doubt if many people accept this route. It's going to be a little bit more challenging route. There's more steps to go through. But again, as you can tell from the information we sent in, the American Optometric Association, the schools and colleges of optometry, many state associations have questions about the current national board system here. Again, we're concerned with transparency, and again, even the Ontario province has discontinued accepting the national boards from the U.S. here in recent time. So we're not by ourselves about some of these concerns. Again, you've got communications, again, trying to, for lack of a better term, protect an ongoing monopoly in the testing industry here in the United States here. Also, I want this on record here too. The Kentucky Board of Optometric Examiner strongly supports a national testing service. However, we're concerned about psychometric accuracy. We're concerned about transparency of the boards. We're concerned, does it integrate the future of optometry? And most importantly, we're concerned about the welfare of students attempting to go to optometry school. Again, if they see the testing is insurmountable, they may not choose this profession down the road here, and we want it based on the welfare of the students, not any kind of financial gain. And I'll bring your attention, I know you've seen this in your own communities, years ago, about a decade ago, the testing became more important than the education for the teacher system. And we lost a lot of teachers, and now we have a shortage of teachers across this country. So we respectfully request your approval of this amendment. And again, we thank you for your time and consideration on this matter. Thank you.
Do you have anything?
No, no.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
No, thank you all for your testimony. I'll have a couple questions, but I'll open it up to other members first. Do any members of the subcommittee have questions or comments? My co-chair, Senator West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for clarification, I keep hearing amendment. You all talk about amendment. The regulation itself, it's been out there since August. Is that correct? For public view?
That's correct.
Okay. And I asked them this earlier. How much interaction was there between you all and the board from August until now?
There was a phone call from Dr. Bryant to myself.
Okay. And said, how did that interaction go? Was there much back and forth? It seems to me if this is a pretty
fact finding. Yeah, she was asking me questions. It was just a fact finding, and then we received an email from. I'm trying to think how that went. If that was after the fact, we received written comments during the open comment section.
Gotcha. Okay, so there was, in other words, there wasn't a robust conversation.
No, there was not.
I'm going to warn you. I'm going to play devil's advocate for just a second, so you can respond. So usually Kentucky would be the first state to do this. Is that correct?
Correct.
We're usually the last to do most things, and so when we're first, that makes me a little bit nervous sometimes. And you've already commented a lot on some of this reasoning. You know, we would be the only state in America doing this, and we have a solid system in place now. Why? What's the? Give me a list of reasons. You may have already stated some of them. Give me a list of reasons again for the change.
Yeah, Senator West, as we send the information in, we just have concerns about the current testing system. And really the biggest thing is access to care in the Commonwealth, because we are really concerned about the future here. And we do have Canadian students. That's what prompted this years ago, would ask, we've already started down the Canadian boards. Is there another avenue we can go without doing the whole process? So like I said,
this is optional?
Yes, sir. And we're still very confident. They still have to take part 2, which is the clinical, and part 3, which is the practical, so the clinical expertise is there. The basic science issues, I'll give you one I had to learn in my national boards 40 years ago. how many microliters are in the tear film. 7 microliters. I've not used that in the whole time. So our students already have this basic science knowledge. It's the clinical application that's more important and is the key to it all.
And as a general rule, the feedback from the members of the optometrist is positive and
right. There's a lot of concern in the optometric community about transparency.
What do you mean by transparency?
Well, transparency. Most recently, there were some scores released in Part 2, and they were immediately pulled back to the students, again, and within hours. So there is some concern about the accuracy of the testing. And again, that's why I said most optometry organizations really actually want to see some transparencies from the National Board. And as you mentioned, we have not talked to anybody from the national boards directly, did not come to any of our board meetings at all. There was a letter writing campaign against this amendment from other state boards. We probably had 4 or 5 state boards that wrote, hey, don't do this. So again, we don't expect many people to take this route. It's actually 4 steps versus 3 in reality.
Thank you.
Do any other members have questions or comments? Of course, Senator.
I'm just curious. The test, the Part 1 that you're replacing with the optional Canadian test, that's administered by Pearson. What is the cost for a student to take that test?
I believe the cost is around $1,400 for them to take. You're talking about the Part 1?
Part 1.
Yes.
NBO is around $1,400 or $1,500.
And that's my recollection too, around $1,400 or so to take this test.
What's the difference in cost for the Canadian test?
It's comparable.
It's comparable.
But they don't have the travel expenses, where now they have to go to Charlotte, North Carolina to take the NBEO. But the Canadian they can do, it's proctored virtually.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Ellis, again, as my co-chair stated, this has been around for quite some time, and so I reached out across the state and talked to a few different optometrists that, have never led me astray. And I asked the question of the opposition, who here in Kentucky, who presenting was living in Kentucky, and none of them were, but all the optometrists that I talked to across the state were for this and were frankly pretty frustrated with NBEO in general, just for things in the past. I spoke to one who was a victim of identity theft back in 2016, I believe. I think there was a class action settlement of $3.25 million. You bring, was it? 19, excuse me. You brought up the incorrect stores released, and so I do have some general concerns over just oversight in general. On the increased fees, I looked those up in 2016. That's where I'm getting that number. 2016 for Part 1, they were paying $725. In 2024, they were paying $1,445. I understand the need to, or the want to have an alternative testing site, and then I also looked up pass rates, and it seemed like those had declined, pretty significantly too. I think it was in the mid 60s. I think so. I don't know. I trust the providers that I spoke to. I trust your authority in the board established under KRS 320.240 to have the statutory authority to make the decision what you're doing. Do any other members have any questions or comments? Thank you all for coming. Please call the next regulation.
Thank you.
Board of Nursing, 201 KAR 2215.
201 KR 2215 amends to remove the requirement that licensees who are audited are to use a private third-party entity and use in-house certifications in the CE audit process to provide proof of continuing education compliance via the nurse portal continuing education tracking system used by the board.
Thank you all for coming. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Kelly Jenkins, the Executive Director at the Board of Nursing.
Good afternoon. Jeff Prather, General Counsel, Board of Nursing.
Thank you all for coming. There are no amendments to this regulation. Is there any questions or comments from members of the subcommittee? Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Please call the next regulation.
Board of Emergency Medical Services, 202 KAR 7 410 with staff suggested amendment.
202 KR 7410 establishes certification requirements for critical care paramedics, flight paramedics, and tactical paramedics, updates training requirements for community paramedics and wilderness paramedics, transitions paramedics currently certified under the existing pilot program or who have a critical care endorsement to being licensed and certified advanced practice paramedics, establishes methods of validation and auditing of required continuing education, establishes specific renewal provisions for active duty members of the armed forces, establishes certification reinstatement requirements, incorporates new material incorporated by reference, updates existing material incorporated by reference consistent with the proposed regulatory amendments, and makes technical corrections to comply with the drafting requirements of KRS Chapter 13A. The staff suggested amendment updates and corrects the titles of material incorporated by reference for consistency with filed and online material, provides the website to access incorporated material, and makes technical corrections to comply with the drafting requirements of KRS Chapter 13A.
Would you please identify yourselves for the record, please?
Eddie Sloan, Kentucky Board of EMS.
John Wood, outside counsel for the Board of EMS.
Thank you. There is a staff amendment. Is there a motion for approval? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Any questions or concerns, comments from members of the subcommittee? Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Please call the next regulation.
Tourism, Arts, and Heritage Cabinet, Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, 301 KAR 1201.
301 KAR 1201 amends to remove special catch and release requirements on Clear Fork in Logan and Warren counties, remove special 4-fish daily limit on channel catfish and 15-fish daily limit on sunfish for all ponds on the Kentucky River WMA Boone Tract, increase current 9-inch crappie size limit at Nolan River and Rough River lakes to 10 inches, add Rock Castle River to the list of water bodies with an 18 to 26-inch slot limit and a 2-fish daily limit for walleye, and make various updates.
Would you please identify yourselves for the record?
Jenny Gilbert, Legislative Liaison.
Dave Drees, Fisheries Division Director.
Steve Fields, Staff Attorney.
Thank you all for coming. There are no amendments. Do any members have comments or questions? Well, I have one comment, one question. Me and my co-chair were laughing up here. Whenever we're going through the agenda, we get kind of subtitles on what the regulation pertains to, and this one was just fish. So, I don't know, something different. But the question I have, and I was talking to Commissioner Storm about this, with the recent flooding that you all had, he said that there was some damage to some of the fisheries in Frankfort, and I was just curious the extent of that damage, if we know yet, and then also what will that look like for our stocking across the state?
Yeah, I can speak to the damage to our fish hatchery here in Frankfort, Pfeiffer Fish Hatchery, Representative Lewis. We had enough flooding that about a third to a half of the ponds were inundated, either directly or the water backing up through the drain and then coming into the ponds. So we got fish moving from the Elkhorn Creek into the ponds, and we got fish moving from one pond to the other. So it's going to be a little bit of a mess when we go to harvest those ponds, and we'll have to sort them out. There's a little bit of damage at facilities, but not much. They had enough time to get stuff moved and whatnot. So all in all, not terrible, and certainly not in comparison to the other damage to our community.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Any other members with questions or comments? Thank you all for coming. Please call the next regulation.
Transportation Cabinet, 601 KAR 12120 with staff suggested amendment.
601-12120 establishes visual acuity and visual field testing requirements for driver's licensing. The staff suggested amendment amends various sections to comply with KRS Chapter 13A and amends the necessity, function, and conformity paragraph in Section 5 to make technical corrections.
Sorry. Would you please identify yourselves for the record?
Jesse Rowe, Assistant General Counsel with the Transportation Cabinet.
Thank you. There is a staff amendment. Is there a motion for approval of the staff amendment? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Any questions or comments from members? Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Please call the next regulation.
Public Protection Cabinet, Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control, 804 KAR 4212, 251, 400, and 410. 212, 251, and 410 have staff suggested amendments.
These regulations are being amended to establish the applicable online registration and licensure forms. The staff amendments amend various sections to comply with the drafting requirements of KRS Chapter 13A and make technical changes.
Would you please identify yourselves for the record?
I'm Maggie Woods. I'm the Distilled Spirits Administrator.
And Joshua Newton, General Counsel.
Thank you all for coming. There are staff amendments. Is there a motion for approval? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Any questions or comments from members? Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Please call the next regulation.
Cabinet for Health and Family Services, Department for Medicaid Services, 907 KAR 1595, 1835 Emergency, 907 KAR 3210 Emergency, 907 KAR 12020, and 907 KAR 20005. 12020 and 20005 have staff suggested amendments.
907 KAR 1595 and 1835E both amend to delete and update reimbursement methodology to reflect the approval of the new federal 1915C waivers pursuant to federal law, including to allow for higher reimbursement for providers and to conform with KRS Chapter 13A requirements.
907 KR 3210E amends provisions to make updates to the Medicaid reimbursement methodology, increase the federal reimbursement of rates for consistency with new federal 1915C waiver rates, update website links to information, and make technical corrections to comply with the drafting requirements of KRS Chapter 13A.
907-12020 amends reimbursement provisions for SCL waiver services to update the reimbursement methodology commensurate with the federal 1915C waivers and make technical corrections. 907-20005 amends Medicaid requirements for certain recipients to allow incarcerated children and youth to receive targeted services 30 days before release and make technical corrections. The staff suggested amendments for 907-12020 and 907-20005 amend various sections to comply with KRS Chapter 13A.
Thank you all for coming. Would you please identify yourselves for the record?
Dr. Leslie Hoffman, Deputy Commissioner for the Department of Medicaid.
Good afternoon, Jonathan Scott, Legislative and Regulatory Advisor, DMS.
Thank you all very much. There are staff amendments. Is there a motion for approval of the staff amendments? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Yes, I was going to say, any questions from members of the committee? We do have a question from Co-Chair West.
Yes, my question regards KR 20005. We have a summary here in front of us, and it states amends Medicaid requirements for certain recipients to allow incarcerated children and youth to receive targeted services 30 days before release. What are those targeted services they would receive?
Covered services would include early and periodic screening, or what we would call EPSDT, diagnostic and treatment services, including medical, dental, and behavioral screenings and or diagnostic services. Also, this would include targeted case management 30 days prior to release.
So, in layman's terms, basically that's kind of like an overall checkup, right? A physical and mental checkup. Is that safe to say?
For any assessment or referral needs, that pretty much would cover it,
Gotcha.
and case management of who would make those referrals.
Okay, thank you.
Any other members with questions or concerns? Seeing none, thank you for coming. Please call the next regulation, and I'm going to hand off the chair to my co-chair.
Staying with Cabinet for Health and Family Services, Department for Community-Based Services, 922 KAR 1360 emergency with staff suggested amendment.
922 KR 1360E amends to increase the per diem rates for private child placing therapeutic foster care levels 2 and 3 and update material incorporated by reference to reflect the rate increase. The staff suggested amendment amends various sections to comply with KRS Chapter 13A.
Would you please state your name for the record?
Hi, I'm Melanie Taylor. I'm the director in the Division of Protection and Permanency at DCBS.
Thank you so much. There is a staff amendment. Do we have a motion for approval of the staff amendment? Second. We have a motion and a second. Without objection, it is so ordered. Any questions for DCBS on this particular regulation? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That actually concludes this meeting. I think we do have a couple of announcements. One, I'll start with myself. One announcement. I would like to personally thank the staff for this box of cookies that everyone should have received in front of them. Who in particular was responsible?
It was Anna.
You can stand. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. And we have, yeah.
I've already had one.
Senator Wilson's already imbibed. We have an announcement on the next meeting.
May 13th at 1 p.m. I believe that is a Tuesday. If you already know of any conflicts, we would certainly appreciate hearing about them.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Any conflicts, let us know now or in the future. Any other, Representative Bridges has something? Okay. We will make a note of that. Any other announcements from staff? Do you have any announcements? Seeing none, do I have a motion for adjournment? Meeting's adjourned.